We are now 3 weeks into Operation Epic Fury, and officials confirmed to Fox that the U.S. is sending more Marines and sailors to the Middle East, including the USS Boxer Strike Group, which is now on its way from San Diego. CENTCOM releasing new video this morning of U.S. forces keeping the pressure on the Iranian regime. You can see that here. Our missile systems destroying enemy targets, leaving nothing but ashes and smoke. President Trump speaking on that last hour.
We're doing extremely well in Iran. The difference between them and us is they had a Navy 2 weeks ago. They have no Navy anymore. It's all at the bottom of the sea. 58 ships knocked down in 2 days. We're not going to let them have nuclear weapons, because if they had them, they'd use them, and we're not going to let that happen. Should have been done a long time ago by other presidents.
The president also spoke this morning to our own Martha McCallum and reiterated his anger at NATO nations not helping secure the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, a reminder of the regime's brutality. This is horrifying. Iran executed 3 men in a public hanging. One of those victims was a 19-year-old wrestling championship. He was a teenager. They were arrested back in January during the government's brutal crackdown on anti-regime protesters. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany here with my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Emily Campagno. Also joining us, Lisa Booth, Fox News political analyst, and David Webb, Fox News contributor. Well, let's start here with the 19-year-old whose name is Saleh Mohammadi. Known as a rising star, he and 2 other protesters were charged with taking part in the January protest. You'll remember tens of thousands killed there. They attacked a policeman, according to the Iranian regime, and, quote, waged war against God. But according to a human rights group, they had been tortured, forced to confess, and were executed without a fair trial. That same human rights group calling this a blatant political murder as part of the regime's campaign to crush dissent and terrorize society. They are just one of many groups condemning these executions. Former Olympians are also speaking out, saying things like this: what we're seeing in Iran is a brutal reminder of what that regime stands for. And, quote, murdering a teenaged iconic athlete shows how deeply depraved the Iranian leadership is. Sam Ashgari, an Iranian-born actor, joined Fox and Friends this morning, calling out the weakness and fear within Iran's leadership.
They know they're losing their control, so that's why they're cracking down, and that's why they're persecuting all the protesters and anybody that comes down and speak on behalf of the people. So they don't want any of that. That's why we see the public execution of the 19-year-old Olympian champion, because they know how influential that person was. And not only that, is anybody that's going to be influential, they're going to crack down because they are so weak.
This is who the brutal terror regime is. No resemblance of a fair trial, Harris. And people are saying it is reminiscent of when there was a 2018 Iranian protest. There was a wrestler, also a champion wrestler, Naveed Afkari, who was killed in 2020 in an execution. And he was convicted of killing an Iranian security guard during that protest. And the Iranian regime, in this case, and in many others, eliciting confessions via torture.
Look, I've been talking with former military leadership a lot, both, in person and just on background. And what this can signify is there is such fracture among leadership, both governmental and military leadership, that there is a concern about an uprising now. Like, you've already killed north of 30,000, 35,000 of your own citizens before this against protesters. Continuing to kill those protesters sends a strong message. Don't you dare try to rise up. The problem now, though, is, and yes, they may be a predominantly unarmed public in Iran because they've lived in a terror regime for so long and weren't allowed to have anything, let alone freedom. But what this says is that if they get any help at all, whoever is left is in trouble. And so let's crack down now, so says the enemy. And this isn't the first time we've seen something like this, using basically the people as bait to say to the rest of the world, don't you dare help them, and telling your own people, don't even think about rising up. They have lost control of the ground, and they will kill their own to try to make it look like they haven't. But when you fight inside your own borders, and we're seeing some other signs of this now too, we're sending in A-10 Warthogs now. Those are those attack helicopters that tell you that there might not be a lot of incoming coming in toward the air now. You've taken out so much. I see you nodding, David. So, and that's near the Strait of Hormuz. We are making some progress, but the price for that can be these people's lives. And when we say stay underground, you know, you have to. And I pray for them every day that this can end quickly.
Absolutely. And we should pray for them because they are up against quite a force. David, if you want to know about the Iranian government, look no further than in January, where President Trump said, we've been told the killing in Iran is stopping. There's no plan for executions. And look where we are. And we're supposed to trust them on an Iran nuclear deal as they did during the Obama era?
You have to just trust their history. In 47 years, they've effectively killed millions within their own country. Look at the purges over 47 years. Look at the destructions of lives, the destruction of a society. And they have done this play. By the way, in Iran, a war against God is one of the most common excuses for executions, whatever it is you commit, whether it's a social crime, an actual crime, or whatever, which puts them in the position of that belief system they have that the Ayatollah is supposedly God's representative. So first see them for how they view things. Look, I have a friend whose father was murdered for being a prominent journalist in Iran. She, fortunately, and the rest of the family escaped. They still talk about this. This has been going on for decades. But now there's a new generation, a new demand. There's a desire for something else. And they've reached a point where there is no other option, but they're also being aided by the destruction of the leaders, of the infrastructure. This is war, and war is ugly. It is brutal, and unfortunately, there will be casualties and there will be fatalities. But the future and freedom, for those out there who are saying all these conspiracy theories and Israel dragged us in, whatever, stop it. What does the world look like if Iran continues versus if the regime is destroyed and the people at least have a chance to go out? And I'll say this to the people who are sticking themselves out, whether it's Reza Pahlavi, National Council of Resistance in Iran, Jawari, all the others. Time to come to one table. Time to have a discussion about how you can help Iran move forward, and there will still be dissidents in the country that we may hear from in the future. But Iran needs more voices at the table to look at a future rather than separate voices trying to tell us how they're going to do it.
You know, Emily, Brandon Slay, he's an Olympic gold medal wrestler at Sydney in 2000, and he spoke to Fox News Digital. And let me read to you his comments on this. As someone who has traveled to Iran for wrestling twice and welcomed Iranian athletes into our country, I've seen firsthand the dignity and the heart of the Iranian people. That's why it's heartbreaking to witness a terror regime execute a teenager. My prayers are with Saleh Mohammadi's family, all who are suffering in the face of such oppression. I cling to the hope of the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's the only light that overcomes darkness and the only truth that proclaims justice and mercy and will one day prevail. I thought that was a beautiful statement.
Indeed. And it's so refreshing to read and hear about these Olympians and athletes that are expressing solidarity and representing the globe's shock and outrage at this event. It's just at the expense of a life, of so many lives. I mean, every time I was nauseated when I first saw that. I can't get it out of my head, and we keep playing the clips of him so alive. He was a 19-year-old. He had his whole life ahead of him. This is the poison of the regime. This is the evil of those humans that are taking these decisions. By the way, threatening more, saying more executions to come. I mean, the depravity cannot be overstated. And I think about, too, those young women, the Iranian soccer team, who are now headed home, only some of which who have sought asylum in Australia. Some have changed their minds. It makes me sick to my stomach for them and their fate. And it begs the question, so what were we supposed to do? And I know that there's differing opinions on how the United States should proceed from here, from this moment. We can't go backwards. But the reality is, I feel it's undeniable, the evil people at the hands of the Islamic Republic, and that the world has to do something. How can you sit idly by and watch a 19-year-old be butchered, executed for simply speaking his mind? And the silence of those usually vociferous other athletes in this country.
The United Nations, too.
And Megan Rapinoe and all of those people who love their mouthpieces, who are dead silent now, well, that speaks just as much volumes.
Yeah, why are they silent? And to your point, those Iranian soccer players, I thought the same. They were branded wartime traitors, and I pray for their safety. They were heroes. They are heroes. Lisa, to Emily's point, I think that was well said, the depravity of the regime. This is the regime that killed infants. And yes, it was Hamas, but that is an Iranian proxy. They killed babies on October 7th. This is who we are dealing with. They killed Kafir Bibas.
Well, no, these people are evil, and they're demonstrating that. But this is the Iranian regime trying to project strength. And in reality, I think it's projecting a loss of control. Because, look, this regime has not survived for almost 50 years through legitimacy. It survived because of tactics like this, by controlling the economy, controlling the media, controlling its people, crushing dissent, fear. And so I think the question now isn't whether the regime will survive, it's how long will it survive? Right? You look at all these different pressure points the regime is facing, whether it's internally, even before this war. We saw those nationwide protests, those people willing to die for freedom in their nation. And now you look at all these external pressure points with its military being degraded by the United States and Israel, with this unity from these Arab and Islamic countries, as well as even some of our Western allies and Japan starting to stand up as well. And then the last thing I'll mention is when people questioning if this is the time to go after Iran, if your enemy is as weak as Iran is right now, isn't that the time to go after them? Isn't it the time to take out your enemy when they're this weak?
Yeah, no, it's well said. And, you know, the United States, we have to finish the job.
Exactly.
Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. They kill infants. Remember that.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.